So the Oblivion Remaster arrived, and after much speculation we finally got to play it. Many wondered if this would be a brand new game, built from scratch in the Unreal Engine. The same title as the 2006 classic, but different in almost everything else. New voice acting, new dungeon design, basically new everything. We wondered if it would get the Final Fantasy VII Remake treatment, where it's an entirely new game, only similar in name. But no, it would be the same game from 2006, just with upgraded graphics. Now I did a video on how I feared that this could go badly, explaining how I worried that my nostalgia was the main reason that I adored this game. What if the original game wasn't really that good? What if it was the memories that I have that made it great? We're in 2025 now, and games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Witcher 3 and Elden Ring have pushed the genre forward so much since the original Oblivion came out. So, it arrived. Same gameplay, same voice actors, same bugs, same glitches and dodgy NPC mechanics. Just a better looking version of a game that is 20 years old, trying to compete with the $250 million games of today. Like the CEO of Blizzard said, it will never hold up compared to the games of today. So I held my breath, booted it up and began playing it, and I love it. It is a better looking version of the same game that we played 2 decades ago, and you know what? It still holds up. In fact, it's even better than I remembered. Assassin's Creed Shadows cost $150 million to make. Dragon Age the Veilguard cost $250 million to make. Oblivion was made 20 years ago for a console 2 generations old. Guess which one is the better game? Now I know graphics are up to today's standards, but the writing, the world design, the quest design, the guilds, weapons, dungeons, all of this was designed and made in 2006. It blew my mind then, and the fact that it still holds up today shows how ahead of its time this game was. Bethesda really were miles ahead of the competition back then, and it's kinda sad when you think where they are today. Skyrim's still great, Oblivion's still great, and I know that Morrowind set standards too, but replaying this game made me realise something. I love the Elder Scrolls franchise. I love the lore, the world, the factions. I love everything about the series. But the thing I love the most is the formula. The open world, the way dungeons are scattered across the map, the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, the way that towns are set up, the whole blueprint of what makes an Elder Scrolls game. It is absolutely insane to think that after the success of Morrowind, Oblivion, and then Skyrim, that we wouldn't see an Elder Scrolls title in more than 14 years. Now during those 14 years, Bethesda abandoned this beloved series and instead opted to make the online Fallout 76 and the procedural generated planet hopping adventure of Starfield. Neither hit the heights expected. People complained about the loading screens, the glitches, the weird NPC faces, the basic writing, but you know what's crazy? The Oblivion remake has all the same issues, yet it's a hit, and it outperforms even recent releases like Avowed, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and many more. The fact that the 20-year-old Oblivion still outshines many of the RPGs of today shows just how far ahead of its time Bethesda were. So where did it all go wrong? Why is Oblivion universally praised and Starfield rejected? Why is Skyrim legendary and Fallout 76 forgettable? Well, in a word, the formula. The Bethesda formula that Bethesda tossed aside after Skyrim. In this video, I will explain in detail what that formula is, how Oblivion mastered it, and why it's so important that the Elder Scrolls 6 return to this formula and abandon the Starfield design. So, back in 1994, Bethesda made Arena, which was the first Elder Scrolls title. Its world was procedurally generated, meaning that the world never really ended. It had a massive scale, but it didn't have as much depth. The game sold 120,000 copies. Then Bethesda followed this up with Daggerfall in 1996, which was the exact same formula, just grander in scale and much more polished. This game sold roughly 700,000 units. Then, after this, Bethesda let go of many key staff, and Todd Howard was appointed as the lead on their next Elder Scrolls title, Morrowind. He decided then and there that they would scrap the procedural generated content and make a handcrafted open world. In this map, players could go anywhere and do anything. There would be towns filled with NPCs that the player could speak to learn things and receive side quests. All NPCs had a name, something unique to say, and a reason for the player to talk to them. Every single side quest was unique and handwritten too. No two were the same. There were guilds to join where players had to work their way up the ranks. There would be dungeons placed all over the map, each with a unique interior from one another. So players could do quests, explore the world, delve into dungeons, or interact with the world. All content was handcrafted and every dungeon, quest, or event was a unique experience. This became the Bethesda Formula. This formula worked, and alongside a Xbox launch, the game came out in 2002 and was a huge success. It scored incredibly well and sold over 4 million copies. This new formula had worked. So they set to work on the next game, and in 2006 we received Oblivion. This game copied the same formula again. Handcrafted open worlds, factions to join, towns of NPCs, dungeons scattered across the map, exactly the same, just larger and upgraded technically. The graphics were better, the voice acting was added, and the user interface was simplified to make it easier for casual gamers to get to grips with. This game scored even better than Morrowind and sold over 10 million copies. Once again, this open world blueprint was a hit. In 2008, Bethesda would branch out into a new series called Fallout, but instead of copying the top-down approach of the original Fallout games, they just copied their own formula. Open world, all handcrafted, towns of NPCs, side quests, dungeons scattered across the map to explore. Same formula again, but this time in a new setting. It scored incredibly well and sold over 12 million copies. After this, they returned back to the Elder Scrolls, this time Skyrim. Once again, the same blueprint as all the others. Handcrafted open world, factions, towns with NPCs, side quests. Graphics were improved again, the scale was grander than Oblivion, and once again the UI was even more streamlined so that more gamers could get to grips with it. It is considered one of the greatest games of all time and sold over 40 million copies. Each game stuck to the Bethesda blueprint, improving each time in graphics, accessibility, and content size. The same formula, just improved. Now, this formula I keep going on about is essential to the point of this video, and it's the Bethesda Formula. No other studio has managed to replicate the same level as Bethesda. It's what they do better than anyone, their trademark. The Bethesda blueprint means a large handcrafted open world filled with towns of NPCs who have daily schedules and give side quests. The map will also have hundreds of dungeons scattered across it, each unique in some way to any others, and there will be plenty of random events for the player to experience. Each of these aforementioned games followed this same blueprint, improving only on graphics, performance, and accessibility. Since these games, we have received many other open world RPG games, but none have matched this formula and replaced Bethesda. They offer some parts of the blueprint, but not all of them. They are sometimes better than Bethesda games in some aspects, but not in the complete package. Witcher 3 has better side quests, but no dungeons. Elden Ring has more detailed dungeons, but no towns of NPCs to talk to. Baldur's Gate 3 has better role-playing, but the world isn't as large. Basically, this is what Bethesda does best, and it's the reason why the Oblivion Remaster has been able to still be successful in 2025. No other game has come in and been the new Elder Scrolls replacement. Now, the reason why this formula was so important is because exploration was always rewarded. If you explored a part of the map in a Bethesda game, you'd always find something unique as it was handcrafted. If you entered a dungeon, you would always find an interior or experience that was at least in some way unique to any other dungeon you'd visited, so each one was worth you going into. It was worth exploring every town and speaking to every NPC because each offered unique dialogue. This is why the Bethesda blueprint was so successful. You were rewarded for the time you invested into the game. It was all worth it. Morrowind, Oblivion, Fallout 3 and Skyrim all copied this blueprint and each scored incredibly well and outsold the previous entry. So at this point, Bethesda were at the peak of their powers. They were the best. They knew their formula and no other studio could do it. Nobody could stop them, except for themselves. Rather than sticking to their proven successful strategy, they began to drift away from the formula. The first game to see changes was Fallout 4. Now overall, the formula was generally the one that I described before, but the side quests in this game began to deviate. Although they maintained many of the handwritten side quests, they started to introduce the Radiant quests, which are computer-generated objectives that never end and lack depth. Repetitive content. In Morrowind, Oblivion and Fallout 3, every single side quest was handcrafted, written by humans with deep storytelling. Every quest guaranteed the player a unique and memorable experience. Skyrim had some Radiant quests, but it made up about 2% of a massive game, a backdrop rather than the bulk. Fallout 4 saw the ratio change. Fallout 4 sacrificed a lot of the handcrafted content for this new Radiant never-ending design. As a result, this was the first Bethesda game to divide fans. But although the game deviated from the previous game's setup, it still managed to maintain a lot of that Bethesda formula. Open world, dungeons, side quests, it was still the same formula, just watered down. 70% of the game followed the Bethesda blueprint that I've just described. The other 30% was made up of settlement building, Radiant quests, and never-ending content, which ironically is the score that fans gave the game. At this point, some fans felt Bethesda was in decline, and perhaps they were right. The next game, Fallout 76, is when the formula was entirely abandoned. It had a terrible launch, but for the sake of this video, let's pretend it launched as it is today, fully functional. Fallout 4 sold over 25 million copies, and it scored generally well. Fallout 76, a fraction of that, and received poor reviews. So, how come? Well, you can argue that the launch had something to do with it, but you see, I think it's deeper than that. They abandoned their formula. Up until this point, every game was a single player, offline, handcrafted open world that had the Bethesda formula, but this game differed. Firstly, it was 100% online, and as a result, it felt like a totally different experience. Instead of a single-player expedition, you're in an online playground filled with microtransactions, emotes, and content that feels shallow by comparison. It's built for social experiences, not for the deep, immersive storytelling that's always been at the heart of a Bethesda game. Rather than a game about forging your own path, trying to survive, completing side quests, or exploring abandoned buildings, which are dungeons in Fallout, it turned into an online looter-shooter where you and your friends in multicolored power armor would mow down hordes of enemies with ease. For fans who enjoy multiplayer games and frequent updates, Fallout 76 has its place. But for players who loved Bethesda for the formula that I keep going on about, this wasn't it. This was a spin-off and deviated from what made Bethesda games so unique. This was the first time Bethesda entirely abandoned their formula, and it was their first failure. 4 years later, and Bethesda released Starfield, which was their new IP. Now, although a lot of the Bethesda formula was there, a lot differed too. So they had the towns, the NPCs, the side quests, the factions, but the open world was no longer handcrafted. It was procedurally generated, so that sense of exploration was gone. In Oblivion, or any previous Bethesda game, if you explored the map, you would always find something unique in every corner, as it was handcrafted. In this game, that wasn't the case. In this game, the worlds were bland, empty, and randomized. Add to that, dungeons were randomly added on planets, but they were drawn from a bank of around 10 in total. So this game had 1,000 planets to explore and only 10 dungeons to visit. So by the time you visited 2 planets, you'd seen all the dungeons, and each dungeon after would just be a repeat. So Dungeon X would be on both Planet A and Planet B, and Planet C and Planet D. So as a result, the best part of Bethesda games was gone. You were no longer guaranteed unique content when exploring, like in the previous games. So quickly, players stopped exploring. It broke away from the formula of the earlier titles. NPCs in towns no longer had names, and they were just named citizens, meaning there was no reason to speak to everyone. So although Bethesda has made many changes over the years, the most important thing was that they abandoned their successful formula, and as a result, it lost its magic. So that brings us to today, with the Oblivion Remaster. Now, make no mistake, it might look pretty, but this is without a doubt the original game from 2006. This is the same 20-year-old game of the 360 era, and fans of 2025 love it. The game still holds up despite its dated design. It has the long loading screens, the glitches, the dodgy NPCs. It has so many errors, but fans still love it. Now you may say it's just nostalgia, but even newcomers to the series enjoy it. But why? Because of the Bethesda Formula. The map is entirely handcrafted. Every quest is handwritten. Every dungeon is unique in some type of way. It has no procedurally generated worlds, no radiant side quests, no generic NPCs with nothing to say, just an open world with the Bethesda Formula 100% built by humans. And now the success of this game has shown us something important. Fans still love the Bethesda Formula. There is still a place for it and a gap in the market. Other great games have come out, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Witcher 3 and many others, but none of them have filled the space of a Bethesda game. They each excel in different areas, and some even outshine Bethesda in some parts, but as a collective, there is no other game that has mastered this formula. Only Bethesda are able to make games like this, and Oblivion showed us that fans still want this type of game. Look at these stats. Over 100,000 live players. #1 selling. I know Oblivion is a big name, but it's more than just a title alone for its success. A title will get people to try it, but the fact that people are still playing it means it's not just nostalgia. It's because this formula still works, and players still want this experience. And this is why The Elder Scrolls 6 can really learn from the reaction of fans to this remaster. Some fans say Fallout 76 is poor because of glitches and jankiness, but the Oblivion Remaster has that. People say Starfield had too many loading screens, but Oblivion Remaster has tons of them. Those may be areas that Bethesda can improve upon, but they're not deal breakers as we can see. The formula is. The formula of Oblivion is unmatched, just like Morrowind before it and Skyrim after it. The handcrafted open world, full of towns with NPCs you can talk to, with handwritten side quests and hundreds of explorable dungeons, each a little unique from one another. This is the Bethesda Formula, and this is what matters. The Bethesda Formula is the reason a 20-year-old game can drop in 2025 and become the #1 selling game. The reason it can almost break the internet and set new records on Steam. And the decision to abandon this formula is the reason why Fallout 4 has mixed player reception, Fallout 76 is generally disliked, and Starfield failed. Because they abandoned their own formula. They focused on settlement building, radiant side quests, open world MMOs, and procedural generated worlds. They abandoned the formula that made them the studio that they are. Bethesda stole our hearts with games like Oblivion, and it's the reason we love their IPs so much. It's why we still give them chances. If Bethesda's first games were Fallout 76 and then Starfield, we'd have run them out of town already. And MMO? I've seen that. Procedurally generated worlds? I've seen that too. The open world Bethesda model? Never seen it since Bethesda did it first. They are the only studio who can make this type of game, and it's an absolute sin that The Elder Scrolls hasn't had a proper sequel in over 14 years. It should be illegal. But anyway, the point of my video. To make a good Elder Scrolls 6 is quite easy. All Bethesda has to do is make Oblivion or Skyrim today. Obviously it can be an improvement on those two, but the formula should be the same. Just make the open world, but handcraft it. Put the towns in and fill it full of NPCs who have names, stuff to say, and quests to give. Place dungeons all over the map and make each unique. Add the factions in and give us a world to explore. In other words, just make Oblivion again. Do that and The Elder Scrolls 6 will be a huge success. But if they prioritize settlement building, or procedurally generated worlds, or radiant quest design, in other words, things outside of the Bethesda formula, then the game won't reach its potential. The formula worked back then for a reason, and as the Oblivion Remaster's success has shown us, it still works today. The remaster's success should show Bethesda what fans value the most, the Bethesda formula of old. Do that and bring it to today's standards, and it will once again put Bethesda back on top. And we fans need it, because no other studio has managed to replace the Bethesda formula despite Bethesda leaving the door open for over 14 years. Bethesda are still the only ones who can make a game like Oblivion or Skyrim. They just need to make sure that they apply their own formula and make a Bethesda game a Bethesda game. If they can do that with The Elder Scrolls 6, then there's no reason it can't put them back on top in the gaming world and make fans of the Elder Scrolls series happy. But anyway, that's it for this one, but what do you guys think? Do you agree with what I'm saying about the Bethesda formula? Or do you think there's something more important? Is there anything that I've missed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please give it the thumbs up, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I'm Av Gaming, where we do video game analysis, identifying what makes great games great and what could make good games great as well. Thanks for watching. Av out.